Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Iowa College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching live on YouTube, please smash the like button like you're Brandon Davis. You have consent. If you're not subscribed yet to the YouTube channel, please knock that out while you're here. As you likely know, in previous years, leading into the NBA draft, we have dedicated short episodes of the Iowa College Basketball Podcast to some of the top-tier prospects available. We're doing the same thing this year, leading up to the 2022 NBA draft. Is scheduled for June 23rd. We've already done Chet Holmgren, Paulo Banchero, Jabari Smith, and Jaden Ivey. Now we turn our attention to Keegan Murray, the sophomore forward out of Iowa. I've got him going 5th overall to the Detroit Pistons in my latest mock draft at cbssports.com. Dead leg, is that too high, too low, or just about right?
Might be just about right. On the Ivy episode, I said the feedback I got was that Ivy's range was 2 to 5. Feedback I'm getting on Murray is 3 to 6. Yes, you heard me right, Parrish. 3, as high as 3. I'm skeptical that he'll go 3, but there are some people insisting that he could get real, genuine interest from Houston at 3. We'll see. I guess there's also obviously the potential. I did speak to someone in a front office in the past 3 or 4 days who said they don't think any of the top 3 picks will wind up getting traded, but there is, I don't know, that temperature can change in the next couple of weeks as we get closer. But 3 to 6, he won't fall below 6. Keegan Murray, one of the 2 breakout players in the country last year, the biggest breakout players. Another one we'll do another episode on, I believe, Johnny Davis out of Wisconsin. And Keegan Murray, who went from playing almost every game with Iowa as a freshman, but only starting 4 of them, to starting 31 this past season. How about this? So I mentioned the Synergy stuff with Ivy on our other episode. Just for comparison's sake. So at Synergy, they grade all the teams, they grade all the players. You can look all sorts of different ways that players play off pick and rolls, ISOs, out of timeouts, all sorts of different stuff. In transition, post-ups, you name it. The film grades it out. There are 6 different categories and situations that players are graded on. They are excellent, very good, good, average, below average, and poor. Those are the 6. Okay. We did the Ivy episode. Ivy rated, and there's got to be like north of 125 of these things that players get graded on. Ivy rated excellent in 29 disciplines, if you will. What's your guess on Keegan Murray? How many do you think he rated excellent in? The best that he could possibly rate in?
Not as many.
Try nearly double. 51.
What?
51 excellent ratings at Synergy for Keegan Murray. Ivy was at 29. He's excellent in transition, spot-up situations, post-ups, offensive rebound and putbacks, and all miscellaneous plays that don't have any true designation. He's excellent in transition. He rates excellent overall in the half court, and that's accounting for more than 650 total possessions. He finished 2nd in the country for Player of the Year at KenPom last year, only to Oscar Tshiebwe. He's 6'8", pure wing, rarely turns the ball over, high-level defender, shot 62% from 2, 40% from 3. His offensive rating was 131.2 at KenPom. That's outrageous for someone who took more than 163 pointers. So, Ivy at 4, I'm not going to reject it. Keegan Murray and Ivy, I think that's the other neck and neck race with the big 3 and the 3 bigs we talked about here. I feel like it's more like a top 5, and then we drop off before we talk to everyone else. Now, a lot of people say it should be a top 2, maybe a top 3. But as we get closer to the draft, Parrish, it does seem like because Keegan Murray is so long, this is a wing. He is a wing's wing. He is long, can defend, shoot the 3, grew into his body. Really fascinating evolution of a story here in the past 18 months, Parrish. There's definitely a chance that Keegan Murray gets drafted before Jaden Ivey. That's definitely on the board, in my opinion.
Oh, it's on the table. That does surprise me that he was like twice as excellent as Jaden Ivey. Listen, I thought he was a better college basketball player. I thought I'd have to go back and look at my ballot, but I think I voted him 2nd for Player of the Year behind Oscar Tshiebwe, which was reflected at KenPom. But in terms of he was an excellent college basketball player. I thought Jaden Ivey, I still might think Jaden Ivey, despite what that says, is better at more things than Keegan. Keegan Murray is excellent. Let's just use that word at some very obvious things. But I think I could argue that Jaden Ivey is excellent at more things. And that Jaden Ivey has a higher ceiling. Although I do really, really like Keegan Murray. Like you said, 6'8" forward, 6'11" wingspan. Averaged 23.5 points, 8.7 rebounds, 31.9 minutes per game for a good team. Shot 55.4% from the field, 39.8% from three, and nearly 75% from the free throw line. Really an incredible story. Adam Finkelstein, our colleague, had a nice video breakdown earlier in the week, CBSSports.com, on Keegan Murray, provided some background as well. He was just 5'10" when he was a sophomore in high school. 5'10". He grew to 6'8" by the time he was a senior. Again, this is all from Adam Finkelstein. But still only had one Division I offer. So he did a post-grad year at DME Academy in Florida. But then even after that, do you know where he was ranked in the class of 2020?
I haven't looked, but since you're saying this, I'll say he wound up playing at Iowa. Give me I'll say 405.
334.
Okay.
He was ranked 334th in the class of 2020, according to 24/7 Sports. One spot behind his brother, Chris Murray.
Wait.
They were 333 and 334.
Oh, all right. That's just a.
That's
whatever. We're just gonna play. They're a combo package. So.
But Chris was actually, at least according to 24/7 Sports, considered the better prospect. He was Keegan Murray was the fourth best recruit in Iowa's 2020 class. And then he goes to Iowa as a freshman. He's a role player, like you mentioned. He only played 18 minutes per game. I'll give Adi Joseph credit, our boss, real smart basketball guy. He texted me during Keegan's freshman year, Luka Garza's final year, very early in the season, and was like, why is this Keegan Murray guy not playing more?
I remember this actually, because he might have chipped in or chimed in, excuse me, on our Slack and expressed aloud his wonderment with Fran McCaffrey's.
He was disgusted that Keegan Murray didn't play more in Iowa. He was like, you got all these McCaffreys playing and Keegan Murray sitting on the bench. It seems crazy to me. Yep. And this is where I give Adi a lot of credit. Keegan Murray was, again, ranked outside of the top 300 in his high school class. It's that obvious that those guys ought to be playing big minutes at a Big Ten school, in their first year in college. But Adi was like, this guy should be playing more. And with the benefit of hindsight, for Adi, it was in the moment. But for most people, perhaps even Fran McCaffrey, it was the benefit of hindsight, because boy, when he played more as a sophomore, he was awesome. I remember though in the offseason, he did start getting some, even though he didn't play much as a freshman, he was on NBA radars. Even though he was not a heralded high school recruit and he didn't play a lot as a freshman, he got on NBA radars because he showed signs of some stuff that is desirable in the NBA. Strong, switchable big, could guard smaller players. But he only shot in that freshman year 29.6% from three on 1.7 attempts per game. So I remember talking to Kennington Smith, who is an Iowa beat writer, Des Moines Register, like really, really talented beat writer. And, we were sort of discussing Keegan Murray as an NBA prospect. This is like a year ago around this time, maybe later, but certainly in the offseason. And one of the things I said was, it's going to come down to the three-point shot. Because he's shown he can be a switchable big who guards multiple positions, guards smaller guys. That's like, that alone might get him in the NBA, because NBA teams need guys like that. But if he can, how can he become a lottery pick? Well, then he's got to show improvement with the three-point shot. And then of course he shoots 39.8% from three as a sophomore. Goes from 29.6 to 39.8. So now look, he's a projected top 5 pick. And as you point out, could go, as high as 3. He is older than your typical sophomore. Like, how old is Jaden Ivey?
He's 19 going on 20, right?
I believe that's right. Keegan Murray is about to turn 22. He's 21, turns 22 in August. So he's only a quote sophomore, but he is older for a sophomore. That doesn't bother me, but that is the type of thing that NBA franchises pay attention to.
You're right. I want to fact check myself in real time here. Jaden Ivey is 20. He turned 20 in February, but he's still considered on the younger side, which is, we've talked about this before. I don't need to belabor the point too much. Sometimes I feel like the age conversation gets a little bit overstated, but that could, Sacramento 4, they might literally be like, the clock starts earlier. We're going to take Jaden Ivey at 20 as opposed to Keegan Murray on
it's fine, whatever. I'm just saying the idea that you can't take a 22-year-old this high in the draft is just crazy to me. The Grizzlies took 22-year-old Desmond Bane. You know what he's about to be? Maybe an NBA All-Star.
And Brandon Clark, who I also think was 22. Bane's awesome, but Brandon Clark's also awesome. I'm with you.
Well, Brandon Clark is useful. Desmond Bane might be an All-Star.
Yeah. No,
that was taken at the bottom of the first round because he had short arms and he was old.
It's wild to me. By the way, the per 40 numbers were also why Keegan Murray was he had really good per 40s that really bloated to wonderful production. The only thing that really went down freshman to sophomore was his rebounds. Again, just per 40, not per game there, which was a major factor. Yeah, but how about this? So off the bench guy most of his freshman season, starts 4 games. Then he starts 31 games, jumps from 18 to 32 minutes a game, goes from 7 to 23.5 points per game, and he comes out of Luka Garza's shadow. Again, this is wild. It's also why I love college basketball.
Iowa could have had back-to-back National Players of the Year reasonably. If Oscar Tshiebwe did not exist, Iowa could have had back-to-back National Players of the Year.
Right? And no one saw Keegan Murray come in as a National Player of the Year candidate. He might have gotten some traction as maybe this guy can turn himself into a draft pick in the second year, but let's not rewrite history.
He looked more like a great NBA prospect than a great college basketball player coming into a sophomore year.
The deal going into last season with Iowa is they lost Garza, the National Player of the Year, Joe Wieskamp, pro prospect, CJ Frederick, good shooter, transfers to Kentucky, and it was probable bubble team. Instead, Keegan plays in a really, really good Big Ten that's loaded with NBA prospects and or just really great college players. Emerges right there with Johnny Davis at Wisconsin, ultimately kind of passes Johnny Davis, on that last turn of the season, if you will, in terms of overall hierarchy for Player of the Year. He leads Iowa to a 5 seed. They win the Big Ten tournament. Remember, the Iowa Hawkeyes were a trendy Elite 8 Final 4 pick because they were in the same bracket. They were in the Midwest. Kansas was the one there. Iowa over Kansas in Sweet 16 was a very trendy pick. Instead, Iowa went Iowa. It had Garza, the National Player of the Year, Keegan Murray, top 3 player in the sport, and accounted for 1 NCAA tournament win back to back. That's just brutal if you're a Hawkeyes fan. They got knocked out by 12 seed Richmond. Just weird ending, but big picture is the most important thing here, Parrish. Murray was able to establish himself early and consistently prove that he was among the best college players in the country. And because of his length, because he can play so many positions defensively, he is an adroit defender. It was clear by the time we got to about January that he was going to be a lottery pick, and his stock just continued to rise and rise and rise since. And so, Iowa had the basically consensus National Player of the Year in Garza, not drafted, not an NBA draft pick. And then you get Keegan Murray on the bench the year before, who's going to probably be a top 5 pick. Probably. There's still a potential that he drops to 6. It's certainly out there, but it's just, and it's Iowa hoops, man. It's just, I love college basketball. It's a bit of a wild story there. I kind of like his. If you ask me to say which player do you think will just have the better chance of sustaining a long career in the NBA, I think I'd go Murray over Ivy because of the defense, because of the length, because the shooting seems to be a bit better right now. And he just might be a bit more adaptable based on the franchise he goes to or the system he's asked to play in. They're very, very close, but I would narrowly lean Keegan Murray, whose brother Chris, did test waters, ultimately decided he's going to head on back there. So who the hell knows? Maybe we'll be looking up a year from now. We'll be like, hey, how about this? 3 years in a row, Iowa basketball. I don't know. It'll be interesting, but I do very much like the trajectory that Keegan Murray's on. And if he were to go to Detroit, if you're a Pistons fan, you start to really get excited about the young nucleus there. And maybe you can become, the personnel is not the same, but if you get Murray, hell, maybe even if you get Ivy with what you had with Cade and everyone that you've been able to bring in the past 2 years, maybe you're like, you know what, we're going to be the next Grizzlies. Give us 2 years and check on us. Maybe in that Eastern Conference, which is a bit in flux, Detroit can really make a move, and suddenly we look up and hell, they're playing as the 4 seed or whatever. I think there's the potential there. At 5, they're in a really good spot. They're going, as so long as the front office doesn't mess it up, they're going to get a player that brings a lot of potential with way more proven commodities than question marks. A lot of these players will be drafted on what they can become. I get that, but no matter who is there for them at 5, if they don't trade out of the spot there, you're going to get a guy who that night, next morning, as you're talking with buddies and friends, you're going to have optimism over the season coming next, and particularly like 2 years from now, there's going to be a good young group there in Detroit.
Just to set the record straight, Luka Garza was picked 52nd.
He did get drafted?
Yeah, 52nd by Detroit.
How about that?
How about that? Who knew?
Again, he's inside. It's a bit of basketball Siberia at the moment there. Good for Luka.
Good. Congratulations to Luka Garza.
I appreciate the fact check, but I did think he went undrafted because that was the whole deal. Was like, he was an awesome college player, but defensively, lateral movement, he's big, like what? But he was good enough that he deserved it. So yes, 10 months later, good on you, Luka.
I agree with you. There's no doubt in my mind, barring injuries, of course, that Keegan Murray is going to be in the NBA for a long time. He has some obviously translatable skills that are valued perhaps more than ever right now in the NBA. Like a switchable forward who's strong and can guard multiple positions, guard smaller guys, and consistently make threes. Like those guys, that's worth $100 million, right there. The question I would have about, okay, very good piece for a very good team for a very long time. Like that's the floor, barring injuries. How does he reach his ceiling? And that comes with being more of a shot creator. He wasn't he scored a lot, but not a great, like some stretch fours can catch it, bounce it, beat their guy and finish. And for Keegan Murray, that's not a real strength at this point. Now he's developed so much in the past 2 years. You'd be a fool to start acting like he can't develop that stuff as well. Like he improved his 3-point percentage by more than 10 points from his freshman to sophomore year. That suggests he puts in the work. So I'm not ruling out that he can become this guy, but he hasn't. At this point in his basketball career, throw it to him on the perimeter, go beat your guy and finish. That's not really what he did too often at Iowa.
Just an average guy driving to the right. Again, I'll just read off a few synergy things here. 43rd percentile overall, 0.769 points per possession in ISO situations when driving to the right. Driving to the left, he was actually a little bit better there overall. But yes, shot creation, putting it on the floor. How much is he going to be asked to do that? But he might not. That might not be ever what he is. Like sometimes it can be hard to reconcile this in the moment when you spend a top 5 pick on a guy. If you can, someone was talking to me at the NBA level like 2 weeks ago or whatever, and we were talking about these guys, and he was basically saying like, what if I told you, she was actually talking about Shaedon Sharpe and Keegan Murray. Well, what if I told you that they're going to last a dozen years in the league and they're going to average, 13 points, but they're going to be a guy that you can depend upon most of those years. So they're going to start, but they're just not going to be an all-star. Sounds a little underwhelming in the moment, but when you look back, it's actually really good value if you can get that. I can see Keegan Murray being a guy he's never the 1, he's never the 2. Maybe he's the 3, right? And if you can do that and sustain that for more than half of your career, then you are absolutely worth going 5th overall in the draft. You clearly are. But does his ceiling match the guys that we talked about before him? Hard for me to say it does. I think that might be the bottom line of why you've got Keegan where you've got him, not 1, 2, 3, or 4, is every other guy we've talked about on these profile pods to this point, I think objectively has a ceiling that you can clearly see is higher if it all comes together for those 4. With Murray, very good floor. Not that there isn't a high ceiling, it's just not as good as the others.
Well, like if you tell me you can get the third best player on a championship level team with the 5th pick in the draft, okay, let's do it.
Right.
I mean, let's look at the NBA Finals. It's the Boston Celtics and the Golden State Warriors. Both those teams have awesome, or really good, accomplished third best players.
Golden State's third best player went in the second round. So yeah.
Right. Well, we could argue that, right?
Well, I mean, you know what I mean. Like they've got 3 Hall of Fame players, and the third one, Draymond, was a second round pick.
Yeah, so. But like Jordan Poole might be Golden State's third best player right now.
You and I need to not talk about Jordan.
Yeah,
Poole,
I'm not ever talking about Jordan Poole. Yeah. I never speak about Jordan Poole, but he might. My point is, like, if you're going to actually try to win something significant, you need to have a really good third best player. How about this? To bring it back to my hometown. The Grizzlies' third best player right now is Jaren Jackson Jr., top 5 pick.
Yeah.
Top 5 pick on a $100 million contract. He's their third best player. Now, maybe they'd like him to be the second best player, but like right now you got Ja Morant, second team All-NBA, Desmond Bane, borderline All-Star, Jaren Jackson Jr., first team All-Defense, third best. You need your third best player to be really, really, really good. So sometimes people say, but like, will he ever be the best player on a good team? I don't know, but like, can he be the third best player on a great team? If so, let's take him with the 5th pick. And I think Keegan Murray's got a chance to be that, if not better. There are questions about how high his ceiling is. I agree with you, but his floor is pretty high. Like, 6'9", can guard multiple positions. Like, I think, and when I say multiple positions, I mean, let's call him a stretch 4. He could switch over and play small ball 5 on the defensive end. Like, he could guard bigs, most bigs. And then you could switch him over and okay, you probably don't want him guarding Joel Embiid, but like he can guard 90% of the bigs in the NBA. He can guard them for extended periods of time. I trust him to do that at some point in his career. He can obviously guard 4s. I think you can throw him on wings. And then when he gets switched onto 1s, it's not ideal, but he can play in that space. And then if the 3-point shot's legitimate, and I don't really have a great reason to think that it's not, again, those guys are super valuable. Like they sort of get labeled like 3-and-D wings. Like they're just sort of like role players, but 3-and-D wings are really important. Like every NBA franchise trying to win something of significance needs wings with size who can guard multiple positions and make a 3. Like if you're trying to win it, you need that guy on your roster. And the more of them, the better. And that's what Keegan Murray is. Like, I don't want to say he's the safest pick in this draft, but if you tell me he never has serious injury issues, health concerns, I'll tell you, in 2032, he'll still be in the NBA.
Seems like a long way away, but then again, it really isn't. My last comment, Luka Garza, I looked it up, played 12.2 minutes a game, played 32 games this past season, 5.8 points, 3.1 rebounds.
It's hard. NBA is hard, man.
In college basketball a year ago. Now he's a different kind of position, but yes, but still, it's
like
not easy.
No, dude.
Yeah, that's a dude who went in the 50s, so it makes sense.
Right. But like, for these young people, they always have these dreams about the NBA. It's hard to even get in that league, and to be meaningful in that league is even that's another level. So, I went back and looked at some draft stuff from last year. There are guys that you talk about nonstop leading into the draft, and then you just don't even think about them again. Like you don't even think about them. And God, who was it I was looking at earlier? But I was looking at last year's mock drafts and actual drafts, and I was like, yeah, we talked about that guy on that podcast. Felt like every 5 episodes, and I haven't even thought about him since then. Like that's the nature of the NBA draft, and how these careers unfold. But I think Keegan Murray is going to have a real career in the NBA for a long time. What kind of career? We'll see. But I think his floor is super high. He's got a chance to be a meaningful player if you're trying to build somebody that compete for something, you need guys, even at his floor, even if he doesn't become the best version of what you imagine, even at his floor, you need guys like this. And that's why I'm with you and what you're hearing. Like I'd look at him in the top 3, as high as 3. And I don't see him dropping, 6, 7. 6.
I think
yeah,
6.
Yeah, that's probably like you never know if somebody's just going to fall in love with Shaedon Sharpe, something like that. That could disrupt the perceived order. But yeah, 6 is about as low as it goes for Keegan Murray. Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Huck and Larnell. Thank you guys for listening to the Iowa College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed yet, please go subscribe. Anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, including Apple and Spotify. At Apple, leave nice comments. There's more of us than there are of them. That needs to be reflected in the comments. If you're not subscribed on YouTube, please knock that out while you're here. If you're watching on YouTube, and if you haven't smashed the like button yet, go ahead and knock that out as well. We'll talk to you again real soon. Till then, take care.